So I'm back in the casting chair because I made a video the other day where I was defending Jeff Nippard and his whole role in the fake natty cover-up and how I thought it was really unfair to start pinning stuff on him. And I literally finished editing the video, opened up Instagram, and his was the first post that came up, and I don't follow him, and it was him saying that Hussein had been caught out and he had been exposed as being a fake natty. And the first thing that went through my mind was, holy shit, it's actually happened. And then the second thing was, I've actually just wasted 4 hours of my life making this video that's now totally obsolete and made me look like an absolute fucking moron. Then I went and took a little swipe and I saw the supposed proof that he attached with it, which was Coach Greg leaving a comment on a YouTube video admitting that Hussein had actually been taking stuff in the first 16 months off his lifting and he didn't know, and it was down to some polymorphism that allowed him to keep all the gains. And then I went and read the caption, and to me, and anyone with half a brain, it should have been pretty obvious what was going on, but holy shit was the reaction to this mental. And this was apparently just like a powder keg that was just waiting to get set off, because the reaction is like nothing I've ever seen. For the rest of that night, I could not go on any app for more than 2 seconds without seeing stuff about it, and every single person was putting posts. It wasn't even just stories, by the way. We were talking full on Instagram posts, YouTube videos, being like, it's happened, look, I told you so, he's been caught lying. And I was just sitting back looking like are you all stupid? Can you not actually see what this is?
Oh yeah, I think I can smell shite.
And the reaction to it has been so visceral, it's actually made me rethink the whole natty or not thing and what sort of place it does actually have within the fitness industry. And I was genuinely gobsmacked. And by the way, if you can't tell and you've not seen it, the whole thing was just a big ruse, and Greg and Hussein later on that day, after everybody had blown their load and supposedly been validated in everything they've been saying, they've done a sort of spoof video where they're quote-unquote admitting that Hussein was actually taking stuff or had been taking stuff, and the whole thing was just like a wind-up, and they then put messages in at the end just saying that it was all done in jest of the people who keep accusing him of being a fake natty, and Hussein saying there's nothing that I can ever actually do to prove that I'm natural. And the other sort of point to it was right, okay, now that you've heard and you thought that Hussein was natural, what difference does it make to you? And the point being, it doesn't make any difference to you, and you should just focus on yourself and all that type of thing. And this whole thing with Greg leaving a random comment on a video, that is him all over. He actually tells you that he does this, that he'll go on videos and he'll leave comments, and they're almost like little red herrings to start stirring stuff up. And ironically enough, one of the biggest escalators of this was him doing it on the anabolic sticks video that's then blew him up, which is, he's been one of the main voices through this whole thing. And he's actually went and done it again, and people were just so dying to get their stuff out and saying I told you so, and get their views and be first to react. And it was almost like celebrating that this had come out and had no consideration at all that the whole thing might have just all been bullshit. And even Jeff, who everybody says is so smart and listens to, he actually put that in the caption, that he actually thought, you know what, it's probably a publicity stunt, but he was still rightfully pissed off. And people didn't even consider it and just went all guns blazing into oh, this is definitely 100% real with no proof. And what's also quite funny as well is the fact that, again, one random comment on a video, and a mental comment as well, when he actually starts talking about the gear that he was taking and how it was quite clearly not just a little cycle, and it was all the gains that kept after he came off cycle was because of a polymorphism thing that you can actually read it and be he's not got a fucking clue what he's talking about. And people still just took the comment at face value and bought into it. And obviously, if it was the other way around, you wouldn't accept a random comment as exonerating someone. But in this case, they were happy to take it at face value and run with it as being 100% true and accurate. And I've seen the argument where people are saying, oh, well, it's not just it was a one-off troll comment. He actually made multiple comments and doubled down on it, and it's just been disingenuous and untruthful. And yeah, I'm not saying that the whole thing was a good idea, but it also doesn't excuse you for being an absolute fucking retard and just believing it when you actually actually think that the guy's a liar to begin with, and that just makes it all worse. And we're not even talking like it was just Instagram posts going up. I'm talking like full-scale YouTube videos were going out within the first few hours, and like people that just jumped straight on their cameras and had to just get it out. And the first one that I watched on YouTube was from Revival Fitness, who I actually agree with a lot of what he says, but he definitely has a very high opinion of himself, and everybody else is wrong, and he's the only intelligent one.
Revival was right. Again, as I always am. And I told you guys, and you just still won't accept it.
I don't know if it's just the way he speaks or he's slightly on the spectrum. And in his video, he's taking his victory lap saying, I told you so, I'm always right. And he starts theorising what's happened, and they must have had a fallout behind the scenes, and they're going to start pushing into like the steroid content and coaching, and he's going into great detail about all this, and he's obviously on his high horse because he thinks that he's been validated and proven right. And then obviously the whole thing's come out as a troll, and then he's made like a follow-up video to it a few days later, basically still saying that he was right even though he wasn't, and he's just like reacting to the actual video, and he's like half acknowledging it's sarcasm and then half not picking up on the sarcasm and then taking it serious. And again, I don't know what his deal is, but he quite clearly couldn't compute everything what was going on, and his brain was getting very muddled. And Jeff Nipper started catching strays for some reason, because apparently he was a moron that got duped and went along with it, but then he actually got duped with the whole troll thing, even though it wasn't actually real, but he's still somehow getting the blame for it. And again, I'm not a big fan of Jeff Nippard, so I did find that quite funny. And I'm the same as everybody else. I look at guys like Hussein and Julian, and I've got the big question marks and red flags going on too. And as I say, are their physiques naturally achievable? I probably think so. In their time frame, that's what makes it massively suspect. And I'm doubting Thomas when it comes to everything, and I've said on here before that I think that there would have been more than likely not steroids used to achieve these transformations. However, it does kind of come to a point where you can't just keep saying trust me bro and not providing any evidence, when the other side is actually providing evidence, or as much as they can anyway, that exonerates them. And everybody here keeps banging on about they're definitely taking stuff, and I'm actually struggling to explain, because there is actually nothing to point to other than the eye test that would be indicative that it has taken gear. And I know that can be a bit of a mental thing to come out and say when you're looking at somebody like Hussein, but as I've said from the start, I think his biggest crime is probably the amount of Photoshop he uses rather than his drug use. And again, when the other side's actually coming out with regular blood work, entering drug tested bodybuilding shows to try and get drug tested, and I know there's a massive asterisk next to that, and that sounds as fugazi to me as anyone, but I think drug testing is a load of bullshit anyway, and at least the blood work that's getting done regular now, that's going to be the biggest telltale sign. And again, I don't fully understand all the blood work stuff, but I know enough to look at what I'm seeing and think from a numbers point of view, it does actually look realistic and normal. And it's just made me rethink the whole natty or not culture and videos, and I've always been under the opinion that it is important to call this kind of stuff out, because I think it's absolute bullshit that people can make money, and thousands of pounds and millions of pounds in some cases, off of their perceived notion that they're so knowledgeable about training and they've done all these amazing things natural, and they're actually getting assistance with doing it. And again, coming from a coach and somebody who makes money in the fitness space, like, you don't think it fucking pisses me off that I see people, whether they're open about taking drugs or not, who are perceived to be more knowledgeable and better and a higher standard or whatever, because they've taken gear to get their results. And obviously, it's frustrating as fuck, and I'll never hide that. I also think people have to have an understanding of what's realistic and what's not, so they don't get disappointed, lose motivation, and actually more tempted to take drugs because they think, oh, look at how so-and-so looks, and I'm never even getting close to that, and I've been training all this time, so I'm just going to take gear. Like, I think people not knowing does do more harm than good. But just the way about how everybody's jumped on it, and it was like a genuine celebration, and I would just like to know what went through people's heads after obviously they had that initial like, oh my god feeling, and then after they kind of had that little bit of a come down. Like, I'd just like to know like what went through their head. Like, did that make you feel better? Does it give you more validation about what you're doing? I just want to know, because again, once upon a time, I probably would have been that guy that probably would have seen somebody getting exposed being on drugs, and it probably would make me feel a little bit better about myself. Obviously, as I kind of get a little bit older and more experienced, I'm a bit less passionate about things, and I'm able to just look at things like, right, okay, this is just where I am and I'm focusing on me, and that's cool, but understand not everybody will be like that. Like, does that make you feel better about yourself? Because at the end of the day, whether Hussein's natural or not, whether Julian's natural or not, whether Simeon Panda, Michael Hearn or whatever, and these are obviously the obvious ones that definitely aren't natural, but at the end of the day, you knowing if they're natural or not makes fuck all difference to you, essentially. And obviously maybe mentally it makes you feel a little bit better, but it's now made me start to think, does the benefit and peace of mind knowing if someone's natty or not actually outweigh your ability to be able to just like acknowledge it, but just be like, right, okay, tunnel vision, focus on me rather than focus on what everybody else is doing? And this is a question I'm going to have to think about. Again, this is coming from somebody that's just had a real bee in his bonnet about this for years, but it's genuinely like left me a bit stumped. So at the end of the day, guys, just fucking focus on yourselves. And if this whole just situation, and again, I'm not even sitting here saying that I 100% believe that Hussein and whoever else is natural or not, but I think everybody just needs to just learn from this and just take a back step and be like, look, whether they are or whether they aren't, it's not going to affect you one way or the other. So just focus on yourself, just keep you working as hard as you possibly can, be the best version of you that you possibly can, and try not get caught up in anyone else's bullshit. And I know sometimes it's frustrating when you see guys that you think are on drugs and you want to be at their level and you think that you maybe deserve a little bit more than them. Again, I've been there before myself, and I still sometimes feel like that too. But you need to just try and just rid yourself of that as much as you can, or even if you're happy to have those feelings, but it doesn't impact your actions. As soon as it starts impacting your mindset and actions, then that's when it's went too far. So knuckle down on yourself. If I were you and you're sick of the whole bullshit with this whole drama, try not to stoke the flames to the fire. Don't go like commenting on Greg's posts and Hussein's posts and calling them names and this and that. If you genuinely hate them as much as people are making out that they hate them, then the best thing you can do is not give them any more attention, because that is what they're trying to do. And the whole comment and video thing, I think it was probably a stupid decision. Again, somebody who can kind of think logically, didn't really affect me one way or the other, and people seem to think that it's done so much harm and it's affected Jeff Nipper's reputation and the scientific snitch or bitch or whatever her name is, her reputation, and it's not. I think people are just like diving far too much into this, and again, anyone with any sort of level head should have been able to just read the room when that comment was put out. So I'll leave it there and I'll catch you soon.